Hi, today we have a bit of a longer one for you. This is the first video we've done with our new Thunderbolt series. I've got a NAS here that I'm going to talk you through. I've got a couple of accessories in it. We're going to start off with just a couple of presentation slides just to give you the full picture of the unit itself, of the accessories I've got in it. And then we'll go through a full setup of the operating system. We'll do a performance test on some of the drives. We'll create some storage, create a virtual machine, configure some cloud backup. We'll go through a full suite of getting the unit out the box and effectively going through the very first setup. First we'll go through some highlights. So we've got two sizes for the Thunderbolt NAS. So we've got the TVS-h874T on top there, 6-bay unit, and we've also got the TVS-h874T, which comes in a couple of different specs, which I'll show you a bit later on. That's an 8-bay unit. Each unit has a couple of M.2 slots internally as well, so you've got a lot of different options that you can configure these with. Now, the most popular customer of these types of units would be sort of media focused users, so anybody using it for things like video editing. So as you look here, you can see some of the different requirements depending on the codec size of data you're working with. For even just an hour of footage, it's getting up to some silly numbers there, 3.3 terabytes an hour. So the data rates needed are very, very high. So as you start working with the data, especially if you want to collaborate multiple users together on the same storage, you need something that's going to perform adequately to do it. So that's what we're trying to show off here. So that's just some examples. Obviously there are other ones listed that aren't there. There is some variance within those as well, but that's a fairly average look at what we're able to see when we look for the data. But really high, especially with some of the 4Ks getting pretty high, 8K especially getting high, raw footage even higher. So we'll jump straight into the Thunderbolt 4 NAS options. So the first one there at the top is the 8-bay. This is available with either a Core i7 or a Core i9. The Core i9 does get double the RAM as well, so it comes with 64 gig total. The one I'll be demoing later is the middle one there, the TVS-h874T with the i7 and 32 gig. So I've got it connected with Thunderbolt, so I'll show you how it all sets up as well. And we do also have a 6-bay version which has the i5. So just a bit of information there. Some of the cores on them are performance cores, some are efficiency cores. So that's how we get the total core number, but we're very transparent, letting you know which ones have got performance and efficiency cores. Here's a front look of the units. So they largely look the same. The 6-bay just is a little bit smaller, obviously, 2 less drive bays. The drive trays are lockable as well, so if you want to lock the drive trays you can. We do give you tray keys included. Around the front we do have our USB one-touch copy button surrounding a 10 gig USB 3 Gen 2 port. And you've also got the LCD display at the top that gives you some basic information about what's happening with the unit. You can cycle through different bits of information there on that one as well. When we look around the back, we can see the Thunderbolt ports. They're in the bottom PCI Express slot at the top left of the unit. So that's the slower of the two slots, which is all we need for the two Thunderbolt connections. The very fast top slot is available for anything else that you might have. I've got a QM2 card pushed in there at the moment with a couple of SSDs on it, one that has a 10 gig port. I'll cover that a bit later. We do also have two 2.5 gig LAN ports as standard, and we've got a couple more 10 gig USB 3 Gen 2 ports. One's in the shape of a Type C port, one's in a Type A, but they're both 10 gig. We do also still have the HDMI output, so if you wanted to hook it up to a screen for monitoring surveillance, video output of anything, you can do that through that port as well. So Thunderbolt 4, so in a test in our lab we were able to get it in an all SSD loadout to get 1758 megabytes per second on the write, 1738 megabytes a second on the read. That was in a RAID 5 setup with 8 SSDs. So these are probably numbers that are going to be higher than I'll show you, simply because they were using 8 SSDs. I'm probably just going to use 2 for the test, but we should still get speeds way above what 10 gig can do. So very high performance unit with the Thunderbolt connection. So slot 1 at the top, you can really use it for anything that you want. As I said, I used it for the second option there, a QM2 M.2 SSD, but if you wanted faster networking, you could put things like 25 gig networking in there, 10 gig, anything that you wanted. You could also use it for expansion shelves, so we have some different expansion shelves. The faster ones use SAS or SATA connectivity, so we've got those. They do require a card to be pushed in to work. Or you can even have Wi-Fi 6 cards pushing in, fiber channel cards, anything that you need. The Thunderbolt card is removable, but I guess the main reason you're buying this one is because it's got the Thunderbolt card. We do sell this unit without Thunderbolt, so if you were going to pull it out, I would say go buy that one instead. But yeah, the Thunderbolt card is using up one slot that's already in the unit. If you were to use 25 gig, this is sort of showing you the absolute maximum performance of the unit through the interface ports at the back. So we're able to get almost 6,000 megabytes a second on the read and nearly 4,000 megabytes per second on the write. At the bottom left there, we're trying to tell you exactly how it was set up. Again, that was 8 all SSDs set up in that unit to get that in a RAID 5. Most people are not going to be using it with all SSDs, but that's just letting you know where the limit of the unit is. If you want it to go that fast, you've got to go with an all SSD loadout on this unit. The two 2.5 gig ports still quite respectable, giving you close to 600 megabytes per second on the read and write there as well. So now we'll move into one of the sort of main highlights of this NAS is that it's got PCIe Gen 4. So not just in the PCI Express slots around the back, but also in the M.2 SSD slots that are on board as well. So to make use of that, we do have some new PCIe Gen 4 cards, the first of which would be our QM2 cards here. So we've got a couple of different options. The one I've got in is the bottom one there with the single 10 gig port, but we do it in a version with the two 10 gig ports. They're supplied with brackets for whatever scenario you would want to connect it to, flat brackets, single port, dual port, right angle brackets, both in the low profile as well as the high profile as well. So there's a lot of different options you can use to do this. The reason we give you all these options is it doesn't just plug into our NAS. You can plug it into a computer as well. If you've got a PCI Express slot, we do support them being plugged into your computer directly. If you are using Windows or Linux and you're using the one with the 10 gig port, you will need to install some drivers to use the 10 gig port, but the M.2 SSDs don't need drivers. So we're using the new Marvel AQC113C chipset, which is very good on power consumption compared to previous editions, and even the previous edition wasn't so bad either. But they've managed to reduce it by half now, so it's even less power consumption when you're using 10 gig. So that's a really great option. Here's some architecture of the two cards. Obviously the single port card only has one Marvel chipset on the left hand side, but it's using a Gen 4x8 connection into the motherboard of whatever you're connecting it to, whether it's the NAS in my case or a server, for example. So you've got two Gen 4x4 slots on board. So I think in those slots I've got some Kingston M.2 Gen 4 SSDs, NVMe ones in the QM2 card, and I use some WD ones in the onboard slots as well. Here's a look at the full specs of each different version there, just letting you know the 10 gig port is multi-gig supported, so it's not just 10 gig, it will do 10.5, 2.51, and even down to 100 megabits per second if you needed it to. Again, just highlighting there that drivers are required for Windows and Linux to use it on those. Plugging it into a NAS, no need for the drivers, they're already built in, we've already got that. So here's just a look at the card itself. So you've got the active cooling module on it. So underneath that heatsink, we've got the slots for the two M.2 NVMe's on there. And again, we've got all the different types of brackets that you'd want. So full height, half height, we do in the right angle type, which is what I needed for this NAS. I needed a full height right angle bracket. For some of our NAS, you may need the flat bracket. Some servers, I think I've got some HP microservers that like flat brackets on some ports, but we try to give you every port possible that you might need for whatever you're connecting this into. Here's giving you the full 10 gig performance through the 10 gig port on the QM2 card there, so we're able to very close to max out the full 10 gig throughput. So that's a 10 gig file being transferred in to the storage on the same QM2 card as the 10 gig chipset. So really nice and fast getting that data through. So now we'll move more into a live demo of the unit. So here's the unit. All I've done with this unit so far is open up the chassis, install two M.2 modules into the onboard slots, put two M.2 modules onto a QM2 card, and insert that into the back as well. So that's all I've done. So now we're going to go through the smart installation. Any bits that take a little longer here, I'll just go quiet and we'll fast forward those bits, but we won't cut any of it, so you can see the whole sequence there. So we do have an option to choose another firmware. By default, this NAS is installed with QUTS Hero. You can see that at the bottom left. You can choose another firmware if you want to switch it to QTS, for example. So in some scenarios, somebody might be better suited to using QTS for their setup. So that is supported on this unit as well. But I'm going to go with QUTS Hero here. So I'm going to say Start Smart Installation. Go to accept the agreement. There's an option here to check for update, which I'd recommend that you do. So it's saying I'm already on the very latest firmware, so I'm fine with sticking with the current version. So we'll click Next. Once they come up with the name, I'll do my usual boring thing and just call it the model name of the NAS itself. So that's there. Username Craig. Type in password. Okay, so we'll click Next. Don't need to save that password. Synchronize with the time server, that's fine. This is for the network settings, so obtain an IP address automatically, that's fine. You could use a static address if you wanted. Now the two Ethernet ports on board have been detected, as well as Ethernet number 3. The reason there's a number 3 on this particular setup is because I have the QM2 card inserted, and this would be the 10 gig port that I've added in later, so that's why you've got 3 showing there. If you didn't have the QM2 card, it would just show 2 there, but I'm just using Ethernet port 1. I'm happy with it being automatic, so I'll just leave it on automatic. Now we get to an extra setting screen that you don't see on a normal NAS, but with the Thunderbolt one, it's letting you know that you've got the Thunderbolt port and currently its status is disconnected. So what I'm going to do now is just reach over, plug in my Thunderbolt 4 cable to connect to this NAS that has Thunderbolt 4. You might have heard it beep there, recognizing that there's a cable connected. And usually in less than 10 seconds, it'll give us an IP address. There we go. So now everything's connected with Thunderbolt, so that's just verifying that everything is connected as you'd expect it to be, so I'm fine with that. So now we're going to click Next. If anybody has looked at our setup videos of QUTS Hero before, this is a fairly new screen that's added to the setup wizard. It's always been a setting that you can do later once in the NAS, but we're now letting you pick the firmware update settings. By default, we're just going to tell you there's a firmware, but we're not going to automatically update to it. You can change it to any option that you like. So if you want it to automatically install updates, you can do that. So I'll say automatically install critical updates. So anything that's a security update that's very important to do, I'm happy if that's automatically installed, but I don't want to be interrupted for anything else. So you can set a time here as well. So I'll just leave that as midnight every day. That's fine. Quick summary of everything, so that's fine, happy with all that, and I'm going to click apply. Warning that it's going to erase all the drives in the NAS if we do this. I'm happy for that to happen, so we'll click initialize. So now it's going to run through the setup, take a few minutes. So this is just going to install the OS effectively into the drives from the little USB DOM that we have inside the NAS. So this is going to prepare everything, get it ready, and then we'll get to the first boot of the NAS once this is finished. So I'll just stay quiet, we'll fast forward this bit. As soon as it's at the stage to get ready to log in, I'll come back and talk you through the rest. Okay, so there we have it. That's the initial setup wizard that's completed. We give you some tutorials for Thunderbolt applications down there, which you can click. It'll open up a link to our website. I'm just going to go straight to NAS management, which should open up an extra tab here. So we'll do that. And now it wants us to log in for the first time. So I can close off that first screen, and we're going to log in with the username and password that was created during that initial setup that we did. Okay, so logged in. Couple of things to agree to. Scroll, agree. So you get a few little pop-ups, a bit of guidance to help you through the QUTS Hero OS. So if it's your first time, by all means you can read all these. I'm just going to quickly click through just to get to the main screen. So here it's by default opened up storage and snapshots for you straight away. So this is going to let you configure everything to do with the storage. Let's have a look at how we've got it loaded out first of all. So in the disks view, we can see in the PCIe slots, so these are the onboard M.2 slots, we've got two WD blacks, and we can check if everything's working good down here, because we can see that the maximum speed of the slot is PCIe Gen 4x4, which is 8 gigabytes a second. And we can see that the current speed is set to, has been detected to Gen 4x4, so that's good. I've also got some 20 terabyte WD Red Plus drives, I believe, in here as well. So they're currently all connected up. That's fine. If I scroll right down, we can see the QM2 M.2s as well down here. So 1-1 and 1-2. If I click on those, we can see that these are the Kingston ones. So these are also Gen 4x4 current speed. Same with the maximum speed. So that's all good. Everything's detected fully Gen 4x4. So we should get the best possible performance. To check that, we do have a performance test here. So you can click the three little dots at the top right corner. Pulls out a menu, and there is a performance test section, so we can go in there. Now you can select all disks, but it will take a long time to do the test. There's two tests you can do, which is sequential read and an IOPS result. So what I'll do is I'll just test the two Kingstons here in the QM2 card just to highlight how quick they are. So if we go to performance test, we'll do sequential read first of all. Just going to let you know that depending what services are running, it will change things. Don't use the NAS while you're doing these tests. So I'm okay with that. So now it's going to run those tests, and we're going to see those two drives testing. The faster the drive, the quicker the test runs. So we'll just let the sequential read test finish for both of these drives. Once that's done, we'll leave them selected, and we'll go and select the other performance test, which was the IOPS read. So we'll show you both figures here just to see what results we get. Okay, so we got a very nice set of results there. So they're showing that they're reading at 6.53 gigabytes a second. That's the big B, not gigabits, gigabytes a second. So working very fast, confirming that the Gen 4x4 is working absolutely great. That's faster than you get with the Gen 3x4 by a long way. So nice and fast. Now with those same two disks selected, I'm going to choose the performance test. This time I'll choose the IOPS read instead. So this is going to test those and let us know how many IOPS inputs and outputs per second we're going to get. So that would be more important for things like database applications. Maybe you're hosting some virtual machines on them, things like that. I'll probably use these two SSDs here for a virtual machine a bit later on, but it's just going to give you an indication of just how fast they are. Again, this is just a speed or performance test of how the NAS is able to access the drives. It's not a network speed test or anything like that. It's just how the NAS is able to get data to and from those disks that are internal of the NAS. So we'll just let the IOPS read result finish. It's already finished one. We'll come back when it's finished the second one. Okay, so that's finished both tests there. So yeah, we're able to get over 6.5 gigabytes a second on the read. And for the IOPS, well over 800,000 on both of them. So absolutely fantastic numbers, very high performance. That's going to work just great for when we go through and set it up. So that's the performance test, just showing you that Gen 4x4 is working. So the PCIe Gen 4 is working great there. So we'll just click the back button to exit out of the performance section, back to this area. Now, depending on what you want to do next, we've got storage and snapshots. The next step would probably be a good idea to create some storage to use. Now, as with any QUTS Hero install, we always recommend that the first storage pool, which will become the system pool, is created on SSDs. So I'll just pick the top two there, which is the WD Black M.2s. So I'll pick those two. It's going to automatically select RAID 1 because I picked 2 drives. You can change it if you want. I wouldn't recommend using RAID 0. A bit dangerous. Definitely faster, but I wouldn't recommend it. So I'm going to select those. Absolutely no problem leaving those. If you wanted to use self-encrypting drives, you've got options there to choose that. It's telling us that these drives are compatible. But I'll just leave it on the standard storage pool. That's fine. So I'll click Next. I'm going to leave the optimized performance on. It's going to take a minute to do that test, but I'll just go quiet and we'll fast forward through it. Lots of different options here for whether you want to have pool, snapshot space. All these settings can be changed later, so it doesn't matter if you don't want to. Changing these tick boxes will adjust the estimated unallocated space at the bottom though. So if I was to take off the pool guaranteed snapshot space, our 606 is going to jump up to 781. So gives you a bit more free space, but if you want to use snapshots, it's good to give some guaranteed space. So I'll just leave those default. I'm fine with that. Click Next. Just a quick summary of how everything's set. I'm okay with that. We'll click Create. Just a quick warning there that it is going to erase everything off the drives, and that it can take a while to do the optimizing performance of the volume of the pool, which is absolutely fine. So we'll let it go off and do that. So it's just going to go off and create everything, get everything set up. When it's finished, I'll come back and we'll go through the next steps.
A few moments later.
Okay, now the optimization is finished. It's created the first volume, and we can see in brackets after storage pool 1, this is now the system pool. So this is where effectively the main OS apps, things like that, are going to be living. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go through, set up some extra storage, perhaps install a virtual machine. So the extra drives I've got, so right now the only ones I've used are the 2 M.2s at the top. The rest are free, so I've got the hard drives, I've got the SSDs. Now you could choose how you configure those. You could have a large volume on the hard drives, accelerated with some SSDs as a cache, for example. Really configure it however that you want. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use the other 2 SSDs, the Kingstons down there. I'm actually going to create another pool, and I'll use that one for my virtual machines. So we'll go new storage pool, go next. I'm going to scroll right to the bottom, pick the QM2 ones here, the Kingstons, that's fine. Select those. I'm happy for that to be RAID 1, so we'll click next. Optimize performance, yes. Pool provisioning, don't need it for the demo, don't need snapshots. I can leave a threshold, that's fine. So I'm just going to click create on that, and it's going to create a second pool, and on that second pool I can create shares for other things, to go look at for virtual machines, for ISO files, things like that. So I'll just use those for that one. So while that's creating, I can show you the QM2 card. So if we go to the control panel, go to system status. So here we get an overview of the NAS itself. So this is the i7 series, 12 cores, 20 threads. Again, some were performance, some were efficiency. It's got 32 gig of RAM in the form of 2 16 gigs, so that's all good. If I go to hardware information, we can see everything about all the different hardware, but right down at the bottom we do have information down here about the QM2 card. So there's the QM2 2P410G1T. Bit of a mouthful, but that's where that is. And you get some information about it, how fast the fan's spinning, serial number, things like that, if you ever need those for support. All that information's right there. If you ever do need any other information on the other card that's in there, so we do have the Thunderbolt card in there, you can come to the hardware section and go to hardware resources. Now in here you'll see the QXP-T42P. It's not a card that's available separately, you have to get the Thunderbolt NAS to have it, but that's pre-installed in the NAS, so that's already in the NAS itself. So that's just giving you the information on that one that's there as well, and it's telling you where it's located, so PCIe slot 2. Some other things we can check, we can also go to the network and virtual switch. So in here it's going to show us some information about the different interfaces that we have. So if I come down here to interfaces, we've got the 10 gig interface down there. So this is provided by the QM2 2P. So that's down there. So we've got the 10 gig port that's added in, so I can connect that and use that at 10 gig, 5 gig, 2.5 gig, 1 gig, even 100 meg. So all those speeds are supported on that one. I'm just using the built-in one for the demo. I'm going to switch over to some Thunderbolt transfers next. If I come across to the Thunderbolt section on the interfaces, we can see we've got the two Thunderbolt 4 ports. So we've got Thunderbolt port 1 and 2. You can rename them if you want. So if you want to give it the name of the person that normally connects, you can do that. You've also got statistics. So if you pull up the activity monitor by clicking that, it'll take you down to what the Thunderbolt bridge is doing and how much data is transferring over it. We haven't done any yet, so that's why it's showing pretty flat. But you get a lot of information about the Thunderbolt that's there as well. We do also have some information in our QFinder Pro application. So if I bring that in, so here with the QFinder Pro, you've got two interfaces. So we've got the Thunderbolt interface as well as the network interface. So we've got two options for connecting to that there as well. So you do get highlighted whether you're connected with network connectivity or Thunderbolt connectivity. Obviously, if you want to do very fast data transfers, Thunderbolt connectivity would definitely be the preferred option to use. It's going to go a lot faster. So now we've looked at the few different options there of how you can configure it. We'll just wait for this second storage pool to create. Then we can go off and install a virtualization station, and we'll set up a Linux VM or something, just to show you how that works. Okay, now that the second storage pool is already good to go, there are no volumes within it, shared folders, anything like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go create a shared folder, go through the little wizard here. So the first one I'll create will be for ISO files, I guess. So pick which storage pool. I want it on storage pool 2. I don't need any snapshotting or anything, so I'll leave that there. What size do I need it? Let's set it at 100 gig. That sounds like a good number. Encryption, I don't need it. So we'll go next. Do you want to continue to use thin provisioning? Yes, happy with that. I don't need to change anything here. It's just for ISO files, so I'm happy with the options it's got. So we'll go ahead and click next, 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 and finish. So that's now going to create a shared folder for me in that storage pool. So now I want one for my virtual machines themselves, so I'll do it again. So I'll go new shared folder, and I'll put it in the same area, storage pool 2, and this time I'll call it virtual maybe. So we'll call it virtual. I'll give this one a bit more space, so perhaps on this one I'll give it 400. I'm not going to put much data in either of them, so that's fine. So I'll probably set that one to thin provision's fine. So we'll click next, we'll go yes, okay. Asking if you want to change anything around, so you can change block sizes, things like that. So let's say 64K. So if your virtual machines have a different requirement to your ISO files, it's always good to use separate shared folders. So you can set that up. I'm happy with everything else, so I'll click next, next, and finish. So we'll get that up and running. So we've got the two shared folders now in storage pool 2 that we can use. So the next step is to install, go to the App Center and install some applications. So I don't need the wizard there. So I'm going to go to QTS Essentials. Most apps that I use are in the QTS Essentials. We've tried to give you the most useful apps, the most commonly used apps in one place. So I'm going to install Hybrid Backup Sync 3. Because I'll do a cloud backup in a moment. I'll also scroll all the way down to Virtualization Station, so I'll install that one as well. It's going to ask where do you want to put it. I'm happy with it being on the main storage pool, the system pool, so I'll just say OK to that one. Even if my virtual machines are going to be on a different pool, you can install apps sometimes to different locations. Some apps must be on the system pool, some apps give you a choice. So we'll let those install. So Hybrid Backup Sync 3 is already installed, and down here Virtualization Station is just getting ready. So we'll let those happen in the background. We've got everything set up there, so we can see we've got HBS3. We've also got a set of help items that you can go through, so they're all listed here in the notice board. So just trying to prompt you through the main setup of the NAS if you want to follow those through as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is to one of those shares that I already created. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy in an ISO file. So I've got a ISO file here of Ubuntu, for example. So here I'm just going to copy the Ubuntu one. I'm going to go down to my network options. I can see I've got the TVS-h874T. It's listed under both options, so Thunderbolt or Ethernet effectively. So if I click the Thunderbolt one, double click, it's connected as Craig. So I see I've got the virtual, public and ISO. I'll put it into the ISO one because that's where I want it to go. So we'll go paste item. So we're going to get the 5 gig ISO file copied into the NAS, so that went nice and quick because it was over a Thunderbolt connection, so that's great. So we've got that up there now. Drag that back out. I see Virtualization Station is installed now, so we can click on that. It'll run through a checklist. Make sure you've got everything that you need for a hardware requirement to get it up and running. It is saying I don't have a virtual switch. By default, there are no virtual switches. Now you can come out of this and go create a virtual switch if you want, or you can just click finish and it'll create one for you. And it will use the one it creates for all the virtual machines. So I'll just let it do it automatically here. Once it's done this, we'll be launched straight into Virtualization Station, and we can go and create a virtual machine for the purpose of the video here. There we go. VM Marketplace if you want it. I don't need it, so we're going to go create a VM name. So I'll just call it Ubuntu. Because of the VM name being fairly obvious what it is, it's already pre-filled out some of the other boxes for us, so it already knows we want Ubuntu. It's defaulted up to the newest version we support, so 2204, so we'll leave it on that one. How many CPU cores do you want to give it? I'll give it all of them. How much memory do you want to give it? Let's say 4 gig, that's fine. Memory sharing, where's the CD image? So I know I put it in the ISO folder, there it is. Where do we want the location of the VM to go? So I'm going to select the virtual folder. How big do you want the hard drive to be? 250? Yeah, why not? We'll leave it at that. If you've selected multiple virtual switches, you've got different options down here, so we'll just leave it on the default. I think that's all the settings that I want to do, so we'll click OK. We'll click power on, and then we can go in and view it. So try or install Ubuntu. So yeah, I want to do that. So now it's going to run through setting up Ubuntu. I've got a couple of things to click here, but yeah, this is just installing a VM. It's very simple. It's how you would do it in for really any OS. We've got other tutorials on the channel for things like Windows, so if you want to install Windows as a virtual machine, we've got different tutorials for different things there. So we'll let this go. We'll just type in the prerequisite information that it needs, and then we'll leave it doing its thing while we go set up a cloud backup at the same time. So we're going to say install Ubuntu. I'll say English UK. Fine with that. I won't change the keyboards, that's fine. Select that. Normal installation, fine. Download updates, I'll say no just to make it a bit quicker. But I'll do normal installation rather than minimal. We'll get the full experience here, so we'll click continue. Erase disk and install Ubuntu. That's absolutely fine. Click install now. Continue. Where am I? So pick London. Your name. So just put some default information here. Log me in automatically. That's fine. Shouldn't do that. Just for the sake of the video, it's quicker. Right, so we'll just let that go. Do that in the background. So we'll come back to that and have a look in there a bit later on. While it's doing that, what we'll do is we'll create a backup job. So I'll open up Hybrid Backup Sync 3, little wizard telling you about my QNAP cloud storage, which is what we're going to use. Click through all of the messages. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a backup job up to my QNAP cloud account. So you can go about it a couple of ways. So I'm going to go about it just by clicking into backup and restore. I'm going to say I want to do a backup now, new backup job. Select the source folders. So I'm going to pick the ISO folder because I know I've got a 5 gig file in there. Click next. Where do I want the data to go? Destination storage. I'm going to select my QNAP cloud storage. So it needs me to log in, so I'll just type that in. There we go. So we've got some space up there in the London, England one. That's perfect. So I'm happy to do that. So we'll click create. So there's my account. I'm going to select that one. I already created a folder here for the TVS-h874T. So I'm going to say OK. Job name. So I can just call it backup ISOs, for example. That's fine. And I'm going to click next. You can set a schedule, so I can say I want this to run, say, every day at midnight. So let's say daily midnight. That's fine for me. You can link it to different jobs if you want. And I'll also do the backup now option. Now you've got the backup schedule, you've got version management, so you can enable version management if you want, data integrity checks. You can do a lot of different options. In the rules section, you can exclude things, use data deduplication, data compression, different policies for encryption, whether you want congestion control enabled, things like that, log file information. So I'm fine with that, so all good. So I'm going to click create, and because I tick the backup now, that should immediately attempt to run and get my data sent across to the MyQNAP cloud storage. So it's giving me an information there. You can go into the report here as well, and you can see some information about the backup job as it's happening if you want. We'll just wait for the summary to update, but backing up 1%. It's only 5 gigs, shouldn't take too long. 5% already, so we're getting there. Let's go check on the Ubuntu installation. So we'll come back over here and have a look at the Ubuntu installation. So that's still nicely installing in the background whilst we're doing everything else, so we can leave that running for a bit. Looks like it's getting close to being finished, so we'll leave that running. Come back to hybrid backup sync. So yep, 7%. So that's all happening into my QNAP cloud. So anybody that wants cloud storage, my QNAP cloud's a great option. We don't charge for transfers. Everybody gets a free amount of storage. I think it's 16 gig free just for creating an account. You don't even need a QNAP to create an account, but my QNAP cloud storage is really good. Locations all over the world. Is it 16 locations, maybe 12, I forget now, but there's lots of locations to pick from to make sure you get good transfer rates to a local one, good responses. So yeah, we'll just now flick backwards and forwards between virtualization station installing Ubuntu virtual machine and the cloud backup that's happening. So 2 things happening both at the same time, so that's good. So everything's working great there. Now, at the same time as all of this is happening, what we can do is we can show you how to sort of mount storage the sort of more optimal way to make sure that you are mounting storage. This would be the same for Windows, or it would be the same for a Mac as well. If you use QFinder Pro, it is optional. You can do it a different way if you want, just by going through your network center. But if you select the NAS that you want to use that's got Thunderbolt, it's fairly obvious which one that is if you have multiple, because it's got the Thunderbolt icon. If you click the network drives option, it's going to allow you to use this to log in. So you have to log into the NAS here with your username and password for the NAS. It's now going to ask which interface you want to use. So you can go to it across the network option, or the obvious one, the Thunderbolt one, which is the one we want to use. It's asking which protocol you want to use. We give you a bit of a clue on some of the different reasons you'd use one over the other, but I'm just going to use the default of SMB CIFS. On a Mac, you can add them to the favorites in Finder. You get different options for Windows. And then you just click OK. So it's now going to show you all the different volumes that you've got up there. So there's the public share, virtual share, for example. So I'll just choose the public one. So here with the public one, it just opened it up in a different screen for me, but there's the public share. And I now know that this is mounted over the fast connection because I have 2 paths to my QNAP. I have my networking path, which is sort of just through a 1 gig network adapter I've got attached to my Mac, or through Wi-Fi in some cases for some users. But I also have the direct wired connection of Thunderbolt, and I want the data to go across the Thunderbolt because it is much, much faster. So I've now got this public share that I can use, so it's going to be much faster to get data from one to the other. Now what we can do is we can do a performance test if we like. So here I've got some software, AGA System Test Lite. So all I do is I need to change the target disk. So I'm going to change it from a local path, and I'm going to pick the one which was the public folder that I just mounted. So I'm going to open up the public folder. You can change these resolutions and settings around depending what you need for your scenario. I'm going to click start here. Now, I will just preface this by, when you're doing screen recordings like I'm doing right now, obviously my disk is being consumed, performance is being consumed by doing the screen recording, so sometimes these results aren't as fast as when I stop the screen recording, but we'll try our best. Yeah, so when I was testing this earlier on, we were getting over 1600 on the right there. So yeah, it just depends on what you're doing between the different options here with what you're asking the device to do. But we'll stop it there. But we're getting just over 1000 on each, so that's nice and fast. For most of the codecs, like I showed at the very start of the video, this is very fast and capable for most scenarios with Thunderbolt connectivity. So I don't have any 10 gig connections on my laptop or anything like that. The fastest one I've got is Thunderbolt, and that's what's driving this level of performance. So nice and fast getting the data to and from the NAS, especially if you're doing video editing, very respectable performance. And we can see there that while we were doing all that, Ubuntu's virtual machine installation is complete, so we can restart that. We can also see that the backup to my QNAP cloud was completed, so we can go into the report here, see what it backed up. So files to be processed, 4.69 total files, total transfer, transmission speed. So great, that's all backed up. I've got a backup of my ISO file that I had, simultaneously doing a installation of a virtual machine. It wants me to remove the installation media, so I'll come across here to the virtual machine, come to the disk, and I'm going to eject the CD image, so that's fine. And then we'll come back to Virtualization Station and push enter like it wants. So now it should boot into a fully functioning Ubuntu virtual machine. So everything all done at once there. So that was the full setup. Yeah, there we go. Skip. We don't need any of this. Skip for now. That's fine. But that's a fully set up virtual machine, a backup to a cloud source, set up optimally for Thunderbolt, and we've also got, let's wait for that, set up optimally for Thunderbolt. We did a speed test transfer. The only thing we didn't do is set up the hard drives. It's just same as we did for the SSDs. It just takes a little bit longer for the optimized performance to happen, so I didn't do it, but that would just give you more space than the SSDs are giving me. But yeah, that's really all the different options we've got there to show you on that. So if anybody has any questions, wanted to see something else, please let me know. We'll try to answer any questions as soon as possible. Maybe there's a follow-up video if somebody wants to see these used in a different scenario that we haven't covered here. So yeah, any questions, let us know. We'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks a lot. Bye.